Rage on that beat, going crazy.
Alright, so we were down in the Southern Cape and I was fishing with one of our top ambassadors down there, Hendrico Lesch, and joining us as well was Wimpie, Kirsten, and the whole idea was to see if we could get a few cob on the paddle tail. Well, while we were throwing the paddle tail, working the water, every now and then in the shallows we saw fish swimming up the beach, sort of fiddling around a bit and then turning around and getting back, sucking back with a wash, and some decent sized fish. We wondered what they were, and then we actually realized they were Baardman. Now, a Baardman or Belman it's a fish you don't often see doing that, and we were quite amazed that there were so many Belman behind us in the shallows going up the beach and feeding on something. So immediately we put down the big rods, grabbed the smaller rods, and decided to target these Baardman. Well, Baardman is a type of species that likes to eat a variety of invertebrates, snails, sand mussels, mussels of all sorts. And Hendrico, knowing the area quite well, ran down to the water's edge, dug around a bit, eventually found some sand mussel or white mussel, put it onto a small hook, and he was the first one to get a bait in front of one of these tailing Baardman's noses, and it wasn't long and he was on with the fish. Right, so obviously with us sight casting these fish, they were very close to us, 5-6 meters from us. We were fishing with a light rig. Hendrico had the pen fierce on with very light braid. So obviously he had to have his drag set very, very light, because when that fish picked up his hook and realized his hook, he was going to turn around and swim away at high speed. So that's exactly what Hendrico did. Had a nice soft drag, hooked the fish, and the fish turned around, took 10 or so meters of line, and then he turned it and managed to land it.
Belman of a mussel, and the new fish 5003 with a spider wire 20 pound. Very, very nice setup.
Oh, myself and Wimpie stood there looking at Hendrico and just realized how unbelievable it is to actually see someone sight fishing Baardman from the shore. It was a very nice thing to see, and it was a very, very nice experience to have. Well, after Hendrico hooked and landed the fish and released it safely, it was a race for all of us to get down there, find some white mussel, and put a bait out for ourselves.
Okay, I'm just looking for another mussel. I haven't got a knife or anything to open it. So I'm just looking for another one. Give it a feed like it. And then you could feel like a little rock under your foot. Okay, like that. I'll put it together like that, and then I'll push it, and then I'll just get them the right way. So I just crush it like that. And then get rid of the other one. I'll just open it up. And then all I do is I just start at the top. Straighten it out like that. No content, nothing. More natural. And then, yeah. the throw to short throw in front here, and then hopefully we get another one.
Well, a Baardman is a very interesting species, and it's not a species that one often gets off the side. It's one of those strange species that actually goes all the way out to deep sea, lives in caves and reefs, and then every now and then they'll migrate to the shore zone and right into the shallows like where we saw them. And for us it was just amazing seeing all these fish and knowing that we are so privileged to actually see them, because it's not often you see these Belman so shallow. And as I said, they're not a species you catch every single day. So it was really a privilege to be able to target these species.
After seeing Hendrico catching that Belman of his, I was fishing with a venom anaconda, and so I ran back to my box, snipped up one of my galloon traces, ran down, put on a little sliding lead, also took that mussel, take his advice, cracked it open, put it on the hook, cast it, it was in 10 seconds, and on with a nice fish.
Well, one of the theories we sort of agreed on was that these fish are going to feed for a short period of time. They're only going to rush up the beach with this pushing tide, and we knew we had only a short little window period to target these species.
So I don't mind releasing the tassel fish in the shallow water, because this is where they feed, this is where they live. And they don't have a problem coming in really shallow. That's how Hendrico saw them. Waves were pulling back and he saw this shoal of Belman just feeding in the absolute shallows, and that's where he put 1 to 1 together, picked up the mussel, threw, I picked that up, and I also got my Belman for today.
Right, so obviously sight fishing for these fish you've got to be quite stealthy, and you can't make a noise because these fish are literally 5, 6, 7 meters from you. So we were fishing quite light, but you still had a 2 or 3 ounce weight on. So the whole idea was to land the bait as close to the fish as possible, but without spooking this fish. So you wanted to get in that zone where the fish is moving around and feeding. And I noticed this one nice wake, put my bait a meter or so in front of the wake, and the fish came for me, and I hooked onto a very nice fish. Right, so I was fishing with a pen fierce, obviously fishing light with a light drag, and I hooked into this fish and I could feel this fish had weight and it was a nice strong fish. The funny thing was that a few seconds earlier my cameraman said to me he was following these fish tailing with a camera and he saw a cob. He was the only one that saw it, and as it turned out, that fish I hooked was a nice cob feeding in the shallows among those Baardman. For Belman or Baardman in the shallows, literally like in a foot of water, and this cob came and ate the bait. Well, I must say it was actually amazing catching cob in almost shin deep water. It's an experience I'll never forget, and for me it was a surprise to catch a cob there, and one of those little cobbies I'll always remember, catching it in 20 centimeter deep water. Oh. Not too many places where you can fish with a 1-0 hook, light tackle fishing from a Baardman, and the cob comes and eats your sand mussel bait. This is fun. Well, obviously with us fishing in these shallow waters, and 9 out of 10 times when you hooked a fish, it was as the water rushed up the beach, it would grab the bait, and as the water sucked back, that fish would suck back with the water and just rush off back into the deeper water. So you had a nice little exciting 10-15 meters run before you could turn these little fish and land them.
There you go, another one. Put it back.
This excitement of seeing the fish and digging for these mussels and putting them on, I just had a little trace made up already from earlier on, very light trace, short little hook snoot of about 20 centimeters and a 25 centimeter sinker line to a 3-way swivel. It's a very simple little trace, and obviously a little 1-0 hook, and that's what I use to target these species. So we made that little bait and it took 3 minutes and I'm on here. Let's see what this is that we're seeing swimming around here. It was a culprit we thought it was, Mr. Belman or Baardman in Afrikaans. Alright, so there's our little Belman, little feisty bugger. They all seem to be about this size, like 1.5–2 kilos. So always eating these snails and also the sand mussel in the shallows. The Southern Cape area is just such a special place to fish, and it's not every single day that you can actually see cob and Belman in the shallows tailing and then have opportunity to catch him. So this for all of us was a very special experience and something we'll never ever forget. Alright guys, don't forget to like and subscribe to our Saltwater channel and look out for some more action from the Southern Cape.